It's a big Tuesday, kind of. Bitcoin down $700 since we last spoke, and still no one paying attention to this market. It's like a big old tumbleweed just passing on by, as someone posted ever so lovingly in the Discord earlier, which I couldn't agree more with. But there is the question of the day, which is how bad can things get for Bitcoin? And to answer that question, I believe it's actually best to be looking at corollary markets, as there are a few more obvious things there that can then be, extrapolated onto Bitcoin, essentially. So other than that, I want to welcome you back to the Eric Crown Crypto channel. Let's just jump right into this one, baby. And let me bring up chart pane over here. So first and foremost, we're going to look at NASDAQ futures, which do seem to have the highest correlation as far as all the major indices go with Bitcoin. And in this case, we are looking at, this one is very likely about I think the last time we looked at it was maybe like late May, early June, as likely to beget one more rally up somewhere around $16,000. Thus far, we have a high of 16,062 and 75 cents. So Crown, you're wrong again. It went higher. but at the end of the day, finding a nice pullback from this region right here, which I do suspect will continue to pull back, very likely into a higher low. But looking at it and kind of dialing it back in a little bit more, we can see, things can very easily come back all the way down to the 21 exponential moving average, which is in the mid $14,000 territory. And one, it would just be another higher low, and two, it wouldn't be anything, super unordinary. Looking at the daily right here, we do see one of the major gaps coming in from that exact level, about 14,500 and change. So somewhere around this region here is fair game, maybe gets front run a little bit, but ultimately that would be what sort of a pullback on NASDAQ here? Well, that would be, between like I'd say 7.5%, maybe all the way up to a 9.5% pullback, likely coming over the next month for NAS here. In the short term, can it bounce? Sure, yeah. I mean, that's completely fine. But I would be looking at this, as a nice high, at least for now, probably to be destroyed maybe later on, as long as NASDAQ is below 15,900. That is to say that, hey, if tomorrow's FOMC meeting, they come out and they just say the most bullish things possible, and we see NAS jump back above that region, Bitcoin probably gets dragged along with it to the upside. And speaking of that, we can even look at the correlations here. I think it's best to be looked at on a weekly time frame. We can see a pretty damn high correlation between the two assets in this pane here. Hey, stop that. That's my nice bot doing bot things, I guess. But more importantly, the blue line represents the actual correlation coefficient. The red line represents an adaptive regression, which I do think, best kind of represents the actual correlation. And, basically anything above 0.5 is generally considered like pretty high. And in this case, it's above that region. So I would be looking at this one as indicative or, as a more obvious chart that, pullback more likely to emerge. But at the end of the day, more likely to set in a higher low. So looking at Bitcoin with that in mind, I want to bring you over here to the HPDR range indicator for the daily. We can see the daily range lows have actually extended all the way down now to 27,400-ish region, somewhere around there is fair game. Now, I do believe that one of the earlier areas that we marked off, I believe it was last week or the week before that, is still going to be relevant here, potentially for like a hopium scenario, maybe coming off of like good news on FOMC day, again, tomorrow, which would be the 2-day time frame, or just showing around, low 28s, like 28.2, 28.3 region, and potentially, a nice strong bounce from there. If you see that coming off of tomorrow's event, that would also be considered good enough. But for right now, this would be the area that I'd be mindful of. And then, of course, what's the worst case scenario? I'd be looking at the next range low, actually, and I'll explain why the next range low, around $25,000. Now, the reason why I'd be looking at this 80% of historic returns range lows right here as, somewhere around the worst case scenario is that if we go throughout the past bull markets, or maybe not even bull markets, but just after the low was in, like after the macro low was in, Bitcoin does not really like to trade below that range low, actually. So we'll just go through the data together. And then I think it'll kind of speak for itself. Keeping in mind that, these ranges do change around, as more data comes in, obviously, but it should be, within the ballpark region, essentially. But, going back to the last sort of major low that we did see on Bitcoin coming in from July of 2021. So that was, that was a summer dump from 2021 highs. Bitcoin did put in that rally all the way from about $30,000 to the current all-time high of $69,000. You can see the whole way through, it never really it certainly didn't have any closures below the 80% of historical returns range lows. Just a couple wicks right here, as you can see, and then got marked all the way up to our current all-time highs. Of course, we started back from essentially the Rona dump back in March 2020. Same thing, coming in from this area right here. Yeah, a few closures below the 80% of historic, or sorry, not even the 80, but the 50% of historic returns range lows, but still upwards and onwards was the name of the game. I do apologize for the colorblind people out there, because I understand that these colors are like they are pretty damn similar. But again, I'm deciphering between the dark blue, which is 50%, versus the lighter blue, which is 80%. And again, what I'm saying is that in general upside markets, Bitcoin just does not like to close, or has, I don't believe it's ever even closed below the 80% of historic returns range lows. You can see it closing within that range right here, yes. But going throughout the whole rally, even with these pretty vicious dumps, the worst it did was kind of test around the edge of the 80% of historical returns range lows, like you see right here. And then this one just, the rest was history. The rest was history. In fact, all of the moves down around that region were significant opportunities. Even in bear, even in general downtrends, those were like pretty significant opportunities as well. You got the same thing over here, a few wicks below, that's fine, but no closures below, and there was your high. And we'll even show another one before, or actually let's go over two more. Why not? But here's coming off of the 2018 macro cycle lows. Again, same thing. Bitcoin bulldozes its way to the upside, does test around it, yes, or sorry, this wouldn't even be it. I mean, this was just a straight move to the upside, but ultimately the whole way through, essentially, it was well above that region on that particular rally. If we go back to the prior cycle before that, that's redundant as fuck, but you know what I mean, from 2015, starting off right over here, same thing, same. All of those dumps to the edge of the 80% of historic returns range lows were tremendously massive opportunities, especially coming off of this kind of like pre-halving cycle dump right here, which we might be witnessing, I guess, earlier than what I suspected before. So fair enough, that is definitely possible. But again, the whole way through, despite that, no closures below, nothing, the whole damn way through. So looking at this, I mean, it does make me think that we're probably looking at an opportunity. I mean, it's very likely to be a major opportunity coming up right here. Worst case scenario, maybe a little bit below 25. Best case scenario, maybe 28.2, and then you got 20, like low 27 somewhere in there as well, as the areas of interest that I'll be looking at right now. So I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this particular video. I don't know, should we go over stochastic momentum? Sure, why not? We're already here. But let's see, where is it? There we go. Okay, and let's see. All right, yes, 1 second, let me just refresh this because it's all shaky on my own screen. There we go. Nice. Yeah, so looking at the weekly, again, this week's momentum pivot is going to be about $30,000 on Bitcoin. So if it does fail to reclaim that region by end of this week, yeah, more and more downs are going to be very, very likely. Looking at 5-day time frame, that one I believe is just closed last night. That one is already headed down and will be remaining with downside momentum as long as Bitcoin's below 31. 2-day time frame remains with its downside heavy momentum. In fact, probably should have gone over the 2-day volatility versus stochastic momentum, but we can save that for tomorrow's video. Kind of playing hand in hand with what we just looked at, actually, not to spoil the surprise. Daily getting pretty critically low right here, as you can see. Wouldn't take too much to force it back up above 29,300, but for the short term, it does look like, maybe one more drive lower, which is why I do say that there is a potential for best case scenario there at about 28.2 or so. 12-hour time frame going to be showing fresh downs of momentum, also playing out this trend line regression. I guess I already have it in there. Let me just get rid of this, just draw this one out. And staying within that bearish control zone. Let me go to a fresh chart here too. Yeah, there we go. 6-hour time frame also gonna be showing downside momentum below 29.8. 4-hour time frame also be showing downside below 29.2, and hourly is going to be up, but turning down below 29.1, which Bitcoin's just about $30 above as of right now. So, other than that, again, in the near term here, Bitcoin, a little bit of sideways, a little bit of downside, I expect. And then we get the real move probably coming off the back of tomorrow's event. So it is mostly a preparation for that. As always, there should be some sort of an area for, we went over it with NASDAQ, but for Bitcoin, what would essentially invalidate this, thus validating significant moves to the upside. Daily's back above 30,400 now. On a closing basis would look pretty fucking good. Let's see what CME would kind of say. Yeah, 30,500 for CME. Same thing basically. So other than that, I'll be leaving off right there. I expect tomorrow we'll have some more interesting things to be looking at. And as always, wish you the best of best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Wednesday.